Hey folks, remember when what was it, Time Magazine? I remember it was Molly Ball who wrote the article. They put out this big article about how this great cabal of insiders and people of influence colluded to stop Trump from being reelected president. And they did this through fortifying our elections. Some of you might have heard that term. That was where it originally came from. I don't remember the title of the article, but it was Molly Ball and I believe Time Magazine. And so after months and months of gaslighting and saying it was the most secure election in American history and how everything was totally normal, and you're all crazy if you think that anything different, let's say, was going on in 2020, then they just come out with an article admitting everything and saying, and it's a good thing. Well, now that has happened with the state-enforced social media censorship that we all knew about for years and were told was a crazy conspiracy theory. Matt Taibbi was excommunicated from journalism because of the Twitter files, because Matt Taibbi was, going through Twitter's archives after Elon Musk bought the company and documenting how Twitter was colluding with the federal government, with the deep state, in order to enforce strict American propaganda on the American people. And so Matt Taibbi lost, all of his credibility amongst, mainstream journalists because of this. Well, now the mainstream journalists over at NBC News are fully admitting everything that Matt Taibbi said. And they're not saying, oh yeah, it turns out Matt Taibbi was right. They're just stating these things matter-of-factly, as if this has always been true, because they're to the same stage that they were with the 2020 election. They're like, oh, the election, no, it wasn't stolen, you're crazy. Oh, actually, we fortified the election. Now they're saying that the deep state had been fortifying free speech along with the social media companies, and there was this great alliance between corporation and state, and these terrible, no-good, very bad Republicans came in and wrecked all of it. And so they're just admitting to everything. They're saying, actually, everything that you said was true, and it's a good thing. I swear, I'll never stop feeling disgusted by the way that these people just manipulate public opinion and gaslight the public over and over. And every time they come back as if they're totally earnest and that everyone should trust them. It's all one big psyop. They lie to you over and over again. They make the lies bigger and bigger, Goebbels style. And then they just admit that they were lying and then move on to the next lie and say, well, so what if I lied about that before? That doesn't mean that I'm lying about this now. You now have to give me full credibility with the new lie until, 18 months from now when I admit that I was lying the whole time. Doesn't matter whether it's the weapons of mass destruction, whether it's, the Gulf of Tonkin, whether it's the elections in our country, the forced vaccinations, the censorship. They just lie and lie and lie and then admit the lie, and they say, well, that's ancient history now. I mean, hell, I wouldn't be surprised if the U.S. Navy came out and admitted that the USS Maine was a total false flag, and that actually the Cubans were right all along. And well, actually, even before they were the Cubans, the Spanish. Did you know that, speaking of which, that in Cuba there's actually a monument to the sailors who died aboard the USS Maine when it was blown up in the port of Havana? There are a lot of people who still talk about, thankfully, more than ever, the USS Liberty. Because that's an important that's an important story from history that doesn't get talked about in the history books. The USS Maine, interestingly enough, does. I mean, I think that every history class covers the USS Maine and yellow journalism and all that. And everyone agrees that we were lied into that war. I mean, public school literally teaches you. Now, they don't come right out and say, yes, the Navy blew up the USS Maine and killed all the sailors, because we don't have direct evidence for that. Although there have been people who've tried to get that evidence, but I mean, it's at the bottom of the harbor. You're not really going to get much forensics off of that boat. It's just sort of circumstantial communication stuff, kind of like with Pearl Harbor. But anyway, the narrative in your average American history class about the Spanish-American War was that a group of people wanted to go to war with Spain and take over, because Spain was a dying empire, and they wanted to take over a bunch of Spanish colonies. And so they lied us into war. But then with every other war after that, that's different. And all of a sudden, the U.S. military and the deep state stopped doing that, even though in the 1890s, when there was barely any deep state at all, when there was only one intelligence agency, Navy intelligence, there was no CIA, there was no FBI. None of these things existed. It was just, at this point, Navy intelligence. They conspired to lie us into war under false pretenses. But did that happen in World War I? No. Did that happen in World War II? No. Did that happen in Korea? No. Did that happen in Vietnam? Well, yes, but we don't really talk about that. Did that happen in Afghanistan? 9/11, that's uncomfortable. Well, did it happen in Iraq? Oh, yes, definitely. Everyone agrees on that. Well, what about the last 15 wars since Iraq? Were we lied into any of those? Is it a lie when you don't even tell people that we're at war? Like with Syria, or Somalia, or Yemen, or Libya. Deep down, though, at a gut level, if you ask people in general, without any specifics, do you trust the government? They say, of course not. Do you think that we're being lied to every day? People go, oh, hell yeah, they're all lying to us. But then when it comes down to specifics, when there are real stories on the so-called news, when there's a real frenzy for war, less so now than in past decades, but still pretty strong, people go along with it. So it's like, in theory, they look at something like They Live, which is, such a blunt movie. It's such a blunt message. Don't trust the government. We're all, all of the elites are aliens who, are completely foreign and don't understand our interests and are just using us as cattle and manipulating us. That resonates so deeply with people. People think, oh yeah, I know that's true. And then they don't apply it. The people who actually do are still considered pretty kooky. Again, less so than in the past, a lot less so. I should have a lot more hope compared to, let's say 20 years ago. But it's still not enough. Because despite all this, the state-mandated media narratives still hold weight. They still control enough of the conversation. And the domination over social media was key to that. Now, if they just have to rely on outlets, puppet shows like NBC News to project their narrative, well then, yeah, the state is finished. So anyway, I'd like to end on a hopeful note after all this bitterness, but we'll just have to see. I can't predict the future. Maybe things will work out all right in the end. And with that said, I will hopefully see you folks back here tomorrow.